Sometimes I make videos and I decide not to publish them. Sometimes I make videos filled with a bunch of random thoughts that don't really connect, and I make them and I'm like, can't really think of a title or a category or any kind of way that I could advertise this video in any way, shape, or form, so I just end up not publishing it. If you like videos like this, where it's a bunch of random thoughts that aren't connected, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and please like this video and please subscribe if you're not subscribed. Assuming that I publish this. So throughout the week, I've been returning to some thoughts, and I've learned various things. One thought that I heard in a podcast that made sense to me when I heard it. It was this woman, I'd say she's early 20s. She was telling this story about how a friend died. I'm going to obfuscate some of the details here because I don't want to be too specific. But a friend died in a tragic way, far too early in their life, around 18 years old or something like that. And I think that he died as per taking his own life. And this is very, she was very sad. And then later on, she heard, or she had this dream where his soul like appeared to her and told her that he accomplished all that he could in that life, and it was time for him to move on. And he accomplished everything he needed to accomplish, and then it was just time for him to go. And after she told that story, the spiritual host of the podcast went into some detail about how some souls, like for instance, baby souls that are born, like for instance, why are babies born and then they die after a day or two or a week or a month? And it's not necessarily a karmic punishment either to the parents or to the soul that died. Sometimes that person needed to be born for just a little while to resolve something. Not everything has to be a punishment. To resolve something that they could only resolve or experience in that moment when they needed to be born and then when they died. And then they were able to get over whatever they needed to get over and move on. That soul could move on in its progression. But the presenter also explained how, yes, that is the case, where some souls, it seems like they go too early and everybody's asking why. Everybody's really sad about it. And it's, it's fair to ask, why would God allow this to happen? And then we get into the whole non-duality of God. But it's what stuck with me is that I had a really good friend, best friend, saw each other every week, multiple times a week for 9 years. And he also took his own life about a year and a half ago. And the explanation that I heard, and I've returned to this because I actually heard this whole explanation months ago, but it stuck with me, and I return to it whenever I feel, I like reflexively turn to it. I don't think to bring it up. It's just, I turn to it mentally. Whenever I need it, it seems to pop up in my head. And it makes a lot of sense. My friend died, and he, we're in our 30s. It still felt like too soon. And, of course, I'd go through, is there something I could have done? If I just would have, he wasn't somebody to really tell people his problems. He would always keep it to himself. If I just made him open up more or got him to open up more, could I have done something? And then I returned to that idea. And I really do think, and it may be out of convenience, that's fair, it might be out of convenience, but it feels true. It feels more like a realization than a consolation. That some souls, it seems like they've gone before their time, when in reality, they accomplished all they could. It was time for them to move on, rather than linger. Now, granted, we don't know, we don't have full access to our soul until we die, per se, and then we kind of remember all our lives. I've realized this through realizations, but also through spiritual experiences, but also taking this on there's spiritual authorities that I place faith in their explanation for things, and based on what makes sense to me. So that's kind of where I get all this from. Some of it's from direct experience. I did almost die once. My body thought it was dying, and all the signs were there, and I experienced quite a lot. But at any rate, some souls just need to be here to do a few things and then go. And we shouldn't be sad about it. And it's fair it didn't even occur to me to be mad at God, per se. Because, I study history and I study world events. There's people suffering and dying all the time. It's never made sense to me, the dichotomy between a God and a devil. And I don't think it's the devil does all the bad stuff and God does all the good stuff. That seems childish to think that to me. I don't mean to offend anybody, but it does seem childish. It seems like kindergarten religion. Kindergarten has its place. Kindergarten isn't wrong, but at some point you got to move beyond kindergarten. With being a Shakta and believing in Kali, Kali does good and bad things. Good and bad from our perspective, because we don't see the grander picture. And we don't understand what it takes for us to have quote unquote free will or to exist as separate beings, which is unnatural. We're not supposed to be separate beings. And for us to go through this journey of life relative from one person to another, from one person with the world, and one person through the illusion of time, for all of this to exist, it's almost like the bad stuff has to happen because it's the nature of the illusion that we're in. And I always return to the idea of this world is an illusion. It's not good or bad. And it's not so much that karma is a thing, but at the same time, souls plan out kind of what they're going to go through. These two things can exist at once. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. They choose what they go through, and they choose what they go through based on what it takes for them to evolve closer and closer back to source. The biggest question is, the one that I think once you go through all the philosophy and thinking about all this and understanding non-duality, at least somewhat, I'm not an enlightened being, but at least understanding Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta, somewhat. There's still that question, and I've heard at least one Swami say this as well, there's still that question that we can't quite answer. And it's, why all this? Well, is all this worth it? Like, why Maya? Why delusion? Why separation? And, the convenient answer is God wants to experience itself in many forms, and the only way to do that is for the illusion of separation of many forms. But that explanation isn't quite satisfying, is it? And I think that's one question that we're still left with, even when we come to certain realizations. And maybe that question disappears at some point when we reach moksha and enlightenment. Maybe we don't even have to get all the way back before this question is answered. Maybe the question changes once we realize things. Another thing that I encountered and was thinking about is the idea of Shiva Shakti being the lame god and the blind goddess. So Kali she's all power. She is the power of everything. In her is all the power. That's what she is. She is the potency of God. She has the potential to manifest everything, create everything, preserve everything, and destroy everything. All of that power is within her. But she can't see. And I don't really know how to explain this. That's why I didn't make a whole video on it. But for us, she can see more than us. But it's almost like there needs to be a component where all of that power is guided, and just Shakti by herself, the guided aspect is missing. The missile is there, but the heat-seeking device is not on the missile. Now Shiva, the lame god, no power, dispassionate, separate from nature. So since it's kind of separate from nature, then it can't really act in nature. All that power rests with Shakti. So Shiva they can see everything in its totality because it is separate, because it's dispassionate, because it is a kind of above, but more in, if that makes sense. Every time I say above, I mean in. Anytime that I said above, because it's not up. I mean, what is up? What if you're down there? Then up is different direction. But Shiva is that aspect of sight, of perspective, that guides the power. And we can kind of see that in nature, in the earth. The earth can be sculpted, fields can be sown. If you leave it to its own design, it took a while to create us, and eventually created us, but it was a blind creation. The earth creating human beings, it wasn't self-willed. And nature was intelligent, but not self-aware until us. And then here we are. And it's almost like nature now has sight. Shiva has entered into nature in a way and given it sight, but once again, he's not the power of it. Everything that manifests is the power of Shakti. So it's not his power, but he gives it another degree of consciousness and self-awareness. And I would say understanding, but nature understands quite a bit. So that's why it's kind of hard to explain. And another idea that I've been thinking about this week is I see people get really upset because of the changes that they see in the world that they don't like. Let's just put it that way. And I'm not a fan of the changes, but I think the changes in society don't quite affect me the way that they used to. Now, I am speaking from a place of privilege, to where I am not a marginalized group. I am not a part of a group that is vulnerable before the law and before other groups that are bigger and more powerful. So I speak from a place of privilege. But the dispassion that I've gained over the years, the ability to step back, step away, it helps me see the grander curve of things and to not get caught up on the immediate explosive emotionality of current events, if that makes sense. And I think that we all find clarity. First of all, it's incredibly brave to be who you are in society, in this world. Just not because of the world, but despite it. Despite society, you are who you are. You're proud of whatever marginalized group you're a part of. Even if you're not a part of a marginalized group, and I'm speaking specifically of people who are vulnerable and who might have been affected by recent events. It's incredibly brave to be who you are despite the world and the changes that we see happening in the world. And to have always been that, and to be open about it, whatever marginalized group you're a part of, whatever vulnerable group you're a part of. That is a level of strength that I'm not sure if I have, because there's certain things about myself that I don't tell everybody. there's always that fear of not being accepted. And I still have that fear. So in a sense, I can kind of understand the feeling, but I see people being incredibly brave and having been brave and then being torn apart by recent events. And I want to tell people that you were brave before. Nothing has fundamentally changed about who you are and how you need to proceed to keep on being brave. Even if it feels like, for instance, if you're lifting weights, I guess that's appropriate, you tear a muscle. You're getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and you're really strong, but then you tear a muscle. And then you feel defeated. And if you're like, oh, it's gonna take forever for this to heal, I'm not as strong as I was. And that's a little bit of an extreme example because that's something physically happening, but it's almost like people's brains can tear in a similar way. And it's just, I wouldn't say, it is disheartening to see. It doesn't make me quite as sad as it used to. Things don't make me as sad as they used to be honest. But nothing has changed about the need for bravery and how you move forward. Just continue with the plan that you already had and make adjustments as they are necessary. That's all any of us can do. If the adjustments are big, usually they're not as big as we imagine. And the threat is not as big as we imagine. And we suffer far more in imagination than in actuality because we imagine the worst, or we expect the worst, or we dwell on the worst. And life becomes a terrible place of imagination because the past and the future don't exist. That's a part of imagination as well. So nothing has fundamentally changed about how you move forward. Just making minor course changes on your individual life. I wish I could communicate this to people more directly. I'm much better in front of a camera than I am with actual people. It might have something to do with schizophrenia and social issues. I don't have nearly as many, or they're not as extreme as they used to be, for sure. But I still have them. I think that there is almost every reason to have hope, and so few reasons to be defeated, to maybe feel defeated for a bit, but to really be defeated, not yet, probably never. We're not there yet. We're not even close to there yet. But yeah, these have been some things that I've been thinking about. I hope this video was interesting. If you liked it at all, once again, hit the thumbs up, like this video. Feel free to share a comment about what you think I'm talking about, or if any of this helped, or if any of this was interesting. That also helps the channel. Feel free to share this wherever you like, assuming that I publish it. We'll see. Let me know if you like this kind of video. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.